Hey everyone, this is Matthew, and today I'm combining the incredibly nerdy and popular D&D with the far less popular, but still very nerdy, Dota 2. There's all kinds of awesome and interesting items in Dota 2, and I wanted to bring these unique magical items into the D&D world. I created all of these in gmbinder, but I'm still learning how to format and template correctly, so let me know in the comments if you think there's something I could have done differently or better. Without further ado, here are 7 Dota items that I turned into D&D items. For most of these items, it's not going to be a perfect translation to D&D. For example, most Dota items increase your stats in some way, but that would start to get pretty overpowered, so I'm going to cut those out, and I'm just going to try to get the essence of what the item's trying to do. So for Aetherlens, it was to make sure that it extended the cast range of spells for spellcasters. So I made an uncommon Wondrous item that requires attunement by a spellcaster. It can serve as your arcane focus, but while you're attuned to it, your spell's range is increased by 30 feet, and if it had a range of touch, it's increased to 10 feet. Seemed like a pretty straightforward design to me. I modeled it off of the distant spell metamagic ability for sorcerers, and then just shrunk the range a little so that it doesn't get too strong. The best uses for it would probably be on a cleric. That way you can stay slightly out of battle while casting spells like Cure Wounds and Inflict Wounds that usually have a cast range of touch. But it can also be quite helpful in increasing the range of typically short-range spells like Misty Stab and Bless or Bane. Next up, I've got a classic Dota 2 item, and that's the Blade Mail. While the wearer has the Blade Mail equipped, they can expend one of its 4 charges to reflect the damage from a melee attack back at the attacker. Those charges will refill at dawn, and as with many other magical items that have charges, it can lose its magical properties if all the charges are expended. I originally made it once per day, but that seemed pretty weak, especially if you're in a combat-heavy campaign. So I went with giving it charges and having it refill at dawn instead. The biggest downside to this item I can see is that you still have to take damage yourself in order to damage your opponents. Oftentimes that makes a +1 armor preferable for survivability reasons. Maybe the blades should last for the rest of the turn when you activate them. That would make enemies less likely to keep hitting you after their first swing. But flaws and quirks aside, I'm pretty happy with this item, and I'm looking at giving it to one of my players in a martial heavy party. The next item is a relative newcomer to the Dota scene. Well, I guess not that new. In Dota 2, the Dragonlance is an item that extends the attack range of ranged heroes. That doesn't make much sense here, so we're going to go ahead and make it work for melee heroes instead. First up, I made it a lance, because that's what's in the name, and next up I made it a +1 weapon, because who doesn't like a +1 weapon? But the fun really comes in with this next part. Once per day, you can hit someone up to 20 feet away from you. This can really be helpful in parties with martial characters who feel like they're having trouble with ranged enemies. That is possible that this weapon's a little too strong, especially when you add in the +1. If you find that to be the case, I would either make it attunement or maybe remove the +1 bonus. But I'm pretty happy with this item overall. Next up, we've got a super fun and super simple consumable item, and I've even gotten to give it out a few times. The idea with the Enchanted Mango was to have a spellcasting version of Potion of Healing, just a common magic item that gives a little boost to spellcasters on long adventuring days. As long as you're not giving them out like candy, I don't think they're overpowered at all, and it's a nice little bonus, especially to spellcasters like rangers or arcane tricksters that don't have very many spell slots to start with. The Glimmer Cape is basically a weaker version of the Cloak of Invisibility, but this cape isn't anywhere near as broken. The invisibility is only going to last for 1 turn, and it takes an action to activate, which means you can't attack on the same turn that you activate it. The best use case I see for this is to give yourself advantage on your attack next turn, or maybe to give disadvantage on attacks of opportunity if you need to run away. I think that makes it quite good, especially on squishy heroes, where you can often get into sticky situations and need a get out of jail free card. The Phase Boots are a really sweet item that lets you walk through other creatures on the battlefield. Just like in Dota, sometimes the battle gets a little too cluttered and you need an easy way to chase your opponents. Contrary to what's implied in the flavor text here, you aren't actually transported to the ethereal plane, so every enemy that you pass through can still attack you when you leave their area of influence. This might be fun to give to a player that likes to give chase a lot, though unless they're a raging barbarian or a rogue using cunning action, they might not be able to survive too many attacks of opportunity. Oh, that does remind me though, if you were to combine this with a disengage action, you would be able to walk through as many enemies as you want and not get a single attack of opportunity. That obviously makes it better for rogues who are able to do disengage as their bonus action, but it could be good for anybody. Alright, and our last item for today, the Windlace. It's another super simple item. All it does is it increases your base walking speed by 5 feet. And it's possible that some players might get annoyed with an item like this, especially if they picked Wood Elf just for the extra move speed, but I like the idea. And I just gave a Windlace to one of my players, so I guess I'll find out if I'm right or not. The cool thing about this item is that it wouldn't be unrealistic for your players to even find 2 or 3 of them over the course of several sessions. And players love magic items no matter how weak they are. There you go. There's 7 items from the Dota 2 universe remade in D&D's image. If you liked these designs, or if you think there's a better way to do them, let me know in the comments below. And consider subscribing if you enjoy this type of content.